Board Member Martin Mares. Board Member Elena Gonzalez. Board Clerk Elizabeth Yenda. Board Vice President Joseph Vasquez. Board President Eric Molina is absent. Let the record show that there is a quorum.
C, it was motion by Ms. Gonzalez, second by Vasquez. Motion was 4-0. On D2, classified personnel, it was 2B, only 2B. At 2B, motion by Ms. Tienda, second by Mr. Mares. Motion was 4-0. On D3, administrative certificated, was motion by Tienda, second by Mr. Mares, 4-0. And on D4, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, resignation, leave of absent, motion by Ms. Tienda, second by Gonzalez. It was a 4-0 vote. Now we'll be coming back into regular session. It'll be back to Mr. Molina.
Thank you, Mr. Vasquez.
Moving on to F1, accomplished students, Cedar Chavez Elementary School site. Ms. Gomez. Mr. Briasso.
Yes, so this is part of the presentations that we'll have when site principals come and discuss with the board just what they're working on based on data this year. As you know, we do observe a cycle of continuous improvement. So definitely expecting all sites and departments not only to set goals, but be able to monitor the progress towards those goals and be able to adjust as necessary. So this is the first of the other reports that you'll have from sites. So we are happy and thankful. We appreciate the fact that Ms. Gomez and also Mr. Collazo are here representing Chavez Elementary. And thank you for hosting. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay, so we're going to begin. This is our second year of implementing our support block grant. So this is year 2 implementation. So I'll give a quick overview of our grant. We're one of the 75 schools that qualified for this grant. In our first year of the planning phase, we conducted a root cause analysis. And with that assistance of the Mercury Group, we also analyzed and did a needs assessment and developed an action plan, which was all turned in and approved by Sacramento Office of Education, okay, who are working with us to implement our grant. So from that, we wrote our goals. We developed 2 goals from looking at what our needs were. And our first goal, we worked on, will improve our knowledge and skills in implementing explicit systematic strategies in phonemic awareness, phonics, and fluency with the consistency across K through 3rd classes. Because from our needs analysis, we noticed that our students had gaps when it came to the phonemic awareness and phonics. And so that was preventing them from being fluent readers. So then that is why we wrote that as our first goal. But along with that, we have a large group of English learners at our site. And so we wrote a second goal, which will improve our ELD implementation of designated integrated ELD instruction by creating a strategic plan to monitor and support the implementation of the designated and integrated ELD. So again, we were having trainings and strategies on implementing English language development, but we saw some gaps in that. And so we are working, I will go ahead and show you ahead that we're working with the Mercury consultants, which have been supporting us in the last year in implementing both of these goals. So our first goal, which is the focus of early literacy development. Okay. So to begin the implementation, we had to have professional development. And since our focus was on, or is on, phonemic awareness and phonics, we had our teachers in K through second and now going on to third in the Haggerty, which is a program that we use to teach students phonemic awareness and phonics. Estrellita is a program that our dual language program uses. And then Orton Gillingham training is so that the teachers have the strategies to work in small groups and work on the early literacy skills that the students need. Sacramento Office of Education, like I mentioned earlier, offers additional PD for us. Some of the PD that is offered is for our team, which is the PDSA, which is what we go through a plan, do, study, and act cycle with our team of our LSB teachers. And then there's also professional development for Mr. Goyaso and I. And we go through what is called fundamental reading leadership training. So we're also learning about literacy and how, because when we do the walkthroughs, when we go and observe classrooms, we're also knowledgeable of what needs to be taught in those classrooms. So that's why we also attend training once a month. And then there's online early reading academy that is for our teachers. And so they take each strand of the literacy development and they are doing, it is online, but they are doing training once a month as well. So that is for, so far we had last year we had 5 teachers. This year we have another 4 teachers that will be trained in that. The letters training that Sacramento also offers, that is for our coaches, which is like our TOSAs, okay, and our reading lab teacher. So Mercury also provides training. They come at least once a month, and they are more hands-on, that is in person. And they are also working with our teachers to develop literacy for our mainstream classes and our dual language teachers. But also along with the PD, they offer coaching. So they will model, then they teachers go in and they do their lessons that they've developed with the group, and then they get feedback to improve their instruction. So Mercury is another group that assists us through this process. To make sure that everything is being implemented, we had to purchase some materials, which is our Haggerty materials, our Estrellita materials, and our Orton Gillingham materials, because the teachers need to have those materials right there when they're working in the small groups, okay? And then we hired 2 bilingual instructional aides, which are able to work in those classrooms to support the teacher. And they're also trained in Orton Gillingham so that they're working in their additional group of students. And so they're getting that instruction daily. But we are now to the point where students also need to work on fluency. So this year, we're going to be purchasing decodable text and level readers. And that is why you see the year 2 on that. So that will be some of the materials. Since we don't have to purchase Haggerty and some of the other materials over again, now we do have the funds to purchase those additional materials that we need. Okay. And then Mr. Goyaso is going to go over our goal number 2, which is on English language development. And then we'll also review some data, right?
So with our ELD, we're looking at designated and integrated ELD. So we're receiving professional development from Dr. Mercury and consultants. This year, we also have a strategic plan for restructuring our dual language. And then shortly, we'll show you exactly how that's going to be progressing throughout the next few years. So Franklin, if you can pop up the dual language edition. Thank you. So if we look at last year, we're in the 2021-22 school year. So what our dual language looked like was 1 strand in the Spanish and 2 English classes. So this year, we added a second. So now if you look at 2022, 23, we have 2 bilingual classes and 2 English classes or mainstream classes. So the following year, if you look at now the 23, 24, it's a progression. Now we're gonna add a strand in first grade. So right now in first grade, we have one dual language class, but in 2023, 24, we'll have 2 and 2. And it continues at 24, 25. Second grade, same thing. And if we continue the progression by 25, 26, if you can, Mr. Barella, if you can move that up, please. So if you look at it, it's the transition or the addition for each year. So by the time we hit 2020, 28, 29, we'll have fully implemented 2 strands in each grade level. So as the years, depending on how many students we get, so there's a lot of factors that are going to determine whether we should progress and continue progressing. So there's other additional factors. So this is what's planned for the future. So next year we'll have another strand. So that's where we're at right now. We move on to the next link. So this is what our schedule looks like in the dual language. It's 50-50 model. So we have our Spanish dual language teacher instructing in Spanish, and our English partner working with our Spanish teacher. So what does that look like? Well, that's pretty much a schedule on how it's broken down, but it's also, this takes a lot of extra planning for both teachers where they're collaborating, and during their prep times or times where they have it scheduled in the day where they're able to plan. So this is what it's going to look like. So eventually, as we progress throughout the next few years, we'll be having this similar, it would look like 50-50 across the grade levels.
Mr. Collazo, just real briefly, would you happen to have a hard copy of that by any chance?
I can get you a hard copy.
Could you?
I can print out.
It's just like really far away
Yeah.
and for me to see it.
It's available online on the
Oh,
board,
okay.
but she's gonna get it.
Yeah, and I can also include it in the Friday report for you.
All right.
A copy of it.
We can get that to you. So if you look at the schedule, it's to be a Spanish in the morning for one group, and then that'll flip-flop in the afternoon. We can go to the next, there should be another link. So coaching and planning sessions, this is what we have upcoming. And as a matter of fact, tomorrow we'll be having a planning session. So this is pretty much just to show you a schedule of what's been approved by the board. So this pretty much is the dates of planning that are going to take place throughout the school year. And it's going to be in person where our teachers are going to get that additional training. So one of the things in looking at our data in Fastbridge, we had a decrease in at-risk students in K-3. So if we can click on that link. So this basically shows our high risk, some risk, and low risk. So in the fall, if we look at our kinder, when they begin their assessments in kinder, they're pretty much learning their letters and sound recognition. So you look at it, it's 10%, but as in the winter time, you look at it, the high risk increases. So that's due to the score, the students taking different assessments, not just letter sounds, but it's onset rhymes, it's segmenting, blending. So there's a different set of tests that are given to determine where our students are where they're going to be at. So if we look at in the spring, winter was high risk, spring, and if we look at the fall, so our numbers are decreasing. So some risk, So we look at the summarized with 46, then 35%. So it kind of trends to what their students are doing as the students become more familiar, or the instruction is more in depth, or the instruction is based on those other skills of literacy that they're learning. So that's clear across the board where we're making, we're improving. So that's one of our targets, is looking at literacy. So that pretty much indicates where we're moving in the right direction. And as we also go to our trainings, we're ahead of, in that respect, we're ahead of the games, because some other districts aren't where we're at. So when we meet and discuss with other principals, other people from here in California, school districts, we're pretty much where we need to be at. And we're going to continue to make gains. So,
This is another draft of what we're working on to improve literacy and raise our test scores. So as principals and administrators, we're working through this process where we set our goals. So we said students will improve their distance from standards on the SBAC and ELA by 10 points. And then from there, we determine what are the initiatives to get to that point. What are we going to do to get to that point? So then one of the initiatives is to target small group instruction. It's a targeted small group instruction. So like I mentioned earlier, our teachers are going through lots of training, and their materials are being provided. And so then we develop the actions that go with those initiatives. And I know that's really kind of small to see there what the actions are, but those actions go hand in hand with what we've already shared with you with from the grant presentation. So then another thing was on the foundational skills. I mentioned all the things that we're doing with that in our plan. And then the rigorous tier 1 instruction. So we already have our initiatives that we're doing or going through right now. And then now we have actions to match those initiatives. So again, you'll see it in the, this slide is not in the presentation, but this is a work in progress. And I have a slide like this for ELA. I have one for math. I have one for science. I have one for ELD, and I have one for student behavior. So this is something that we're working with the curriculum and instruction department. And just wanted to show you how everything that we're doing here at school goes along, matches with our LSB grant, okay? Plus all the supports, if you go to the next slide. Okay, we have the English learner group that also works with our teachers, especially in our 4th, 5th, and 6th on English learner, the English learner group. They are working to make sure that the instruction, the designated and the integrated as well, that their lessons are geared to those English learners in their classroom. And then, of course, Fresno County Superintendent of Schools, our FCSS team, they send us a coach that works with small group instruction. They send us a literacy coach, but we're also have support as administrators and focusing on better, the instruction in our classrooms. So we have lots of supports, especially from our district, because the curriculum and instruction department provides all those trainings, provides materials, the core curriculum, any supplemental materials, any other professional development gaps that we may have, they also provide those. So we have lots of people that are supporting us. So that's why I wanted to make sure that that slide was put in there, so you know that it's not just one group. We're working with many people to help us here to improve literacy, early literacy. Okay. Okay, so our celebrations are that we had at least, we had very fortunate and a few more that may be reclassified. So far completed, we have the 21 students. We have 30 students that exited the reading lab because they were getting that targeted early literacy instruction. So they are, then they were able to exit that reading lab. Kindergarten and first grade, they developed their scope and sequence along with the assistance of our TOSAs. And so now their instruction is all targeted as well and consistent. And it's consistent across the district. So it's not just Cesar Chavez. And our K through second completed their early literacy skills training. So we have teachers that, like I said, are going through training for results and all these other supports that we've had. And then our year one of restructuring our dual language program. And there's more to, if I would just, I could do just one presentation on dual language restructuring. Because that's also entails changes and improvement, you know, in those bilingual classrooms. Okay, well, thank you very much. I know there was a lot of information, but we wanted to make sure you got a picture of all the great things going on and here at Cesar Chavez, especially when it comes to early literacy. So I thank you.
Support our apologies for not including the documents that were hyperlinked there. I did just email you the presentation and you can go to those slides to be able to access the documents that were referenced there. I know that at this time our eyes are tired, so you may or may not have been able to see that far. So it's for your reference there, and I'll also include it in the Friday communication for you as well.
So what we'll do in the future, any hyperlink, we'll add it to it.
We made a note of it already. Thank you.
Put it in the
Mhm.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez. Thank you, Ms. Grasso. Ms. Gonzalez, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation. And I listened to what you guys were saying, that the students not being fluent readers and that there was a gap. And I am
Can you get
excited
closer
that
to
you
the
guys.
mic, Ms. Gonzalez, please, so they can hear?
Sure.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to see that you guys have an action plan, goal 1 and goal 2. That's awesome. And seeing that you guys purchased the materials for your teachers to work and move forward. And just to see that last page of progress, that's
Mhm.
awesome. That means we have progress going.
Mhm.
So thank you very much for the presentation.
Mr. Matas?
Yeah, first of all, good evening. Just wanted to share with you, first of all, I want to commend our principal, Principal Gomez and Mr. Collazo for the work that you folks are doing. This is a very, very important work to ensure that our students are learning, especially in our two-way immersion program. I'm excited about Miss Mercury because I'm aware of her credentials at Fresno Pacific College, being a renowned ELD researcher, instructor, you know, everything with dealing with two-way immersion and so on. So first of all, I want to say congratulations. I'm excited. I'm kind of jealous. I wish I was just sitting a fly on the wall, just listening to, seeing all of the data, looking at the data and seeing how you're putting everything together, especially with Miss Mercury's assistance. She's not here today, correct? Will she be here presenting in the future?
I guess we could put that in for one of the future board meetings when she does.
We're working on her being able to give an overview of the work and then the work that continues, possibly sometime in the spring as we get ready to submit the next action plan to Sacramento.
Being the fact that she is a consultant, I definitely would like to see her present. We're paying her money. Let's get her out here to present and share the data and her observation, being the fact that she is a consultant and a coach to both of you. And one of the things that I shared with the superintendent was that, all of these wonderful ideas, the assessments and so on, it'd be great for the other principals to also share and to maybe for you to share the items that you're doing so that we can be a uniform school and the best practices for our schools, right? It's just so important. Mr. Costa, you mentioned some of the other schools that you said we were kind of ahead. You mentioned some other school districts. Were you talking about some local school districts that also have two-way immersions, or was it something
No,
out of
this
state?
has to do with literacy.
Okay,
As far as literacy, with the grant, we meet with other schools within California.
okay.
So those are the ones I was referring to.
Oh, okay. So compared to the other schools, we're ahead. Good.
I mean, there's
Good.
some that are already, well, we're somewhere where we're at.
Yeah.
But from what our discussions we've had, because we go out in breakout rooms and we have those discussions on literacy
Right.
and where they're at as a site and what they're using for diagnostic assessments.
Mhm.
So we're okay.
Good.
We're okay. We just need to continue this process of progressing.
I've been hearing good things about what you folks are doing. And I have ears everywhere. I want to make sure that, whatever we need to do to support you, we want to support you. And the superintendent just forwarded me the docs. So I have the docs. I'm seeing everything that you guys are doing. So I do appreciate the hard work. It is a work of progress. You're not going to expect something overnight, but the thing about it is that we have to be proactive. And this school is being very, very proactive. So I'm very excited to see the research and to hear Dr. Mercury's observations soon, very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Kenda?
Thank you so much for being here as admin at the school and for being admin at the school along with implementing this this grant that I know it's something that's on top of everything else of your day to day. So thank you for that. And when I saw the 25, 21 reclassified students as a school counselor, I'm like, yay, the students can take an extra elective when they get to middle school and high school. So I know that that's the goal, is so our students can have a well-rounded education. And so seeing that, and I know that there'll be plenty more to come. So thank you so much for the dedication to the district, all the years that both of you have put into the district and that you continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, mine's the teachers, how are the teachers adjusting to all this extra work putting on them?
Along with all the training and the implementation, they do receive support. We give them support by allowing them planning time to work on what they're learning and implementing it. They co-teach with all the support people that we have. And then they see the results. Once they start seeing those results, how the students are learning and retaining and progressing in their literacy skills, then that is right there how you sell it, is because they see the progress in their students from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And so all those strategies that they're learning, they're implementing them and they're seeing results. But we also offer them the support. They have their weekly PLC times, and some of those PLC times is with a coach sitting right next to them to support them in doing this work.
Okay, and then how are the kids taking it? I mean, are the kids
Um,
sponging it up?
Yes,
They're learning.
yes, and then also because we are targeting them so early in these skills, we can also detect if there's some kind of learning disability as well. So we can target those issues early on. So that's because when we're assessing, we're monitoring, and if we don't see them progressing like they should, then we start looking for other strategies that they can, yeah. That's why they're getting so many different, because we have a variety of students that with different needs. And so like maybe Hagerty targets that, like they can do it in whole group, and it's all phonemic awareness, phonics. And then when they get to their small group, then they use those Orton-Gillingham strategies. Then it becomes even more targeted for those students. So assessments are all aligned. That's what he was saying about how when we meet with other schools from other districts that are in the same with us in this program or with this block grant, we have a lot of things already in place that they are barely developing at their sites. So that's why we get to see a lot more change or quicker change and progress, because we had already begun the groundwork in teaching or in working with our teachers to get the training that they need for early literacy. So that other stuff that just the other additional PD just kind of cemented that the ideas already that they already had. And so, you know, when teachers hear they start to hear, you know, this strategy here, this strategy there, and it's all, you know, the same. So they're like, oh, okay, then it must work because we heard it from this person, we heard it from that person. And then when they implement it, it does. So yeah, it is a lot of work. You are correct. It is work for our teachers, for our students, and then the support of our parents. And then of course, all those people that I mentioned that are supporting us to implement it.
Now,
Okay.
you said 10 points reachable. Who made that goal?
Which one?
The 10 points?
That, like I said, is though that form is a work in progress. It's a draft, but that was something that I started with. I wrote that with the other administrators because we were working on it together. But it is something, you know, that a goal that we set. And so all of those, the theory of improvement, that's also work in progress for us as administrators to make sure that we're aligning all the instructions for ELA, for math. So we're setting goals for all the areas that we need to, that we're going to be assessed on.
Yeah, and that's good. I mean, because you guys both got trained into the program, and that for you to say that, I mean, that you know your people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I can say that that's reachable with
Mhm.
what you got,
Yeah.
and saying, just throwing a number out there.
No,
But
you are
yeah,
correct.
Thank you guys.
Usually goals that are set, you want to set a goal that's attainable, not a goal that's way out of reach, because we want to make that continuous
Right.
progress,
The carrot.
continuous
you did
growth.
that. Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys for your presentation. I know we visited the schools and began the first day, and you guys have awesome staff because the kids were like, it wasn't the first day, it was their second, third day, you know, so it's awesome. I know you guys truly care about the kids. I had a few questions on the grant. It was what, 3 years?
Yes.
Okay, so I remember when we got the grant, we were kind of excited to get it. So we're in the second year of the grant, correct?
Well, we're going on the second year of implementation. The
Okay.
first year was for planning.
For planning? Yeah.
Yes, it's for planning. And then we're on last year was our first year that we implemented and did all the PD and everything. And now we're on our second year of implementation. And I believe we have another year to implement
Okay.
yeah.
No.
So they want to be able to see the growth, right? And so we need that time.
So and my question behind that, just that, just if you could keep us informed on far as like, once the grant's gone, if we don't, do we get another grant behind it? Can we get another grant or we don't get any more money so we can make sure that the funds are still there so we guys can continue with this growth? We're not, what happens with a grant is once we're done with the grant, usually they say we're done with the program.
Yeah.
Well, if it's a program that's working, then we should support it as a board to say,
Right.
what parts of this that, we might need so much of the development, we might need a touch up here and there. We don't need
Yeah,
maybe, you know what I'm saying? But
yes.
to implement a plan beyond the 3 years, so that way we could
That,
prepare for that.
yeah, that is the purpose of the meetings that we have with Sacramento, that the activities and the actions and everything that we do, that we are able to carry them on. So we're not purchasing like, a person and then that person's going to be gone. No, we're purchasing the materials that the teachers need and then the professional development that's going to continue. And then after that, just offering them the support so it will continue. Because if we know it already worked for our kinder first and second, then what do we do? How do we support our fourth, fifth, and sixth?
Yeah,
So there will be less students that will need that reading lab
yeah,
because we're already targeting them really
early.
early. And that's what.
And that's more my thing is that make sure that we're continue with
Yeah.
with your guys' progress, and it's really important, as a board that we continue that even beyond the grant. So that way, if we see this much improvement, we continue with the development, we continue with whatever we need to do to keep you guys moving forward.
And one of the discussions when we first began this grant, one of the discussion was after the grant is over, what are you going to do to sustain
Yes,
sustainability,
sustainability.
the growth,
Yeah.
or stability. So that's one of the things we also had a discussion with Dr. Guerrero. So that's in the works.
It works.
But it's not where, okay, we did, the grant's over.
We're gonna stop.
Yeah.
Good
No.
practices are good practices. They need to be continued.
So,
I got one more thing. One, it's ownership. You know what I mean? If you own it, then you want it. You know what I mean? It's not it's almost like a rent to own. It's gonna be yours. You know what I mean? It's not just something like, okay, this is what they're asking us to do, and we're just doing what they're asking us. And I mean, we're really worrying about the development of our little ones, because that is eventually gonna be our future. You know what I mean?
And if you look at the planning of the PD, it all aligns to what's taking place. It's not just, okay, we have PD today, and we're done with it. It's put on
No,
the shelf,
yeah.
it's continuous. And those are some of the discussions that we've had in our meetings and whatnot.
Yeah.
So,
and that was my other thing is I like the way you guys have it to where we're building that foundation in the early years, right? Because so we don't have so much catching up to do as they move, up in there throughout the, fifth, sixth, seventh grade. They're already at grade level. Now we could develop them with other stuff and you don't need that intervention so much. So I really like that. And because I know that was one of the things is how do we build our youngsters, our kinder, our first or second grade to not be so far behind when now we're just doing intervention on a small portion rather than the big portion that we've been doing. So.
Yeah. So one of the most important things is that first teaching that the teacher does. And that is why we have to make sure that she is well trained and that implements it consistently and with fidelity so that we don't have those students that are falling behind. And that first, if they get it in that first teaching, fantastic. And if they need a little bit more support, then that's what the small group instruction is also for.
I can make a
Once again,
quick,
thank you. Oh, you got
comment.
something, Go ahead.
yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's a good question, Board President. In terms of looking at sustainability, you're looking at best practices. You're looking at the fact that these teachers have invested in their training and learning the latest strategies, techniques, assessments. All this is going to take place to provide a good, high achieving school in a classroom in Parlier. So, I just think that this is it's a win-win for all of us, for all our schools, right? Especially for our kids. We all want our kids to do well. But more important is the time that you're providing, the PLCs, the training, the coaching from Fresno County, providing all those resources, because once it's all done, they're going to continue, because it's a continuous cycle. It's a cycle of improvement. This is what we did. This is what we can continue to do. And the fact that both of you have been trained is very, very important. But we need to share the resources and the information, the knowledge with the rest of the principals in the elementary school, so that there's also to have a high sustainability of achievement, so that they can also do well for our students. But I think that's so important. But anyway, I commend you. And this is a good work. I think I want to encourage you to continue to do what you're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Modis, about, this needs to be throughout our district. But I did know, I talked to all the principals at the football game. They're like, oh, we talk to each other on a daily. And you guys really do talk to each other and collaborate together. So, even without on your own. So we appreciate that you guys are doing that work together, because they're all our kids, every district, like Mr. Modis said. So thanks again for your guys' hard work, and congratulations on the successes.
Thank you.
Thank you for our bags.
Oh, yes. Enjoy your treats.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez. I appreciate it.
Moving on to G, routine consent agenda. In order to promote effective meetings, the board may bundle a number of items and act upon them together by single vote through the use of consent agenda. Consent agenda items shall be items of a routine nature and items for which the board discussion is not anticipated and for which the superintendent recommends approval. Do I have a motion for routine consent agenda? Motion, Mr. Vasquez. Do I have a second? I'll second it. Do I have any public comment on routine consent agenda? None? Any comment from the board? None?
I had a comment regarding number one. If I could learn more about number one, Strive Together Cradle to Career Networking Community Conference in Chicago.
Yes, so that is a conference that I've been asked to attend by Fresno County Superintendent of Schools. I'm actually taking the place of Mr. Eric Sutterquist, who is ill and is not able to travel. It is at no cost to the district, and I will be representing the superintendents in the county. It is a 2.5-day trip. I will be back in the office on Friday, and it's good work that is conducive to our involvement in the planning of community in schools.
Any other questions? Yeah, so you're going to be representing the whole county, right?
Yes, I'll be traveling with the incoming superintendent of schools, with Linda Gleason, who is in charge of Cradle to Career, and then other staff members that are involved in the planning of the community schools initiatives at the county level. I will be the only non-county person that will be representing superintendents in the county.
Oh, awesome. So thank you for representing us. I know you represent us well, and I'm glad they're recognizing Parlier now at the county level, that they've actually invited our superintendent there. So
Well, I do have to, I'm sorry that Mr. Sutterquist is ill. I cannot attend, but, things happen for a reason, and we know we have his full support in being able to implement that. So happy to do so, and honored to do so as well.
thank you. No other questions from the board? All in favor of passing routine consent agenda, signal by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passed 5-0. Moving on to H, general agenda. 1, approval of 2020-2021 annual fiscal report. Mr. Beecher.
Thank you. So at this time, I'd like to introduce one of the partners with our audit firm, Ms. Christina Zakarian, and she will review some of the information in the audit report with you as appropriate.
Hi there. Thank you for having me. I believe each of you should have a hard copy of the audit report in front of you. What I like to normally do is kind of point out some pages to reference, and I'll guide you through that as I work through the report. I first wanted to start off by just letting you know that the audit has been submitted to the state. The audit was put on extension this year, but it was submitted in late July to the state. The state does go through a review process, and they'll review the report and all its components, and they will send an acceptance letter to the district. The format of the report, it is a state mandated format. There is very specific schedules that they require us to include in here. And it's also prepared in accordance with auditing standards. Also, the district is subject to federal single audit procedures. And so the audit has also been electronically submitted to the federal government. So I'll start off by having you turn to page 1, which is the independent auditor's report. I like to start off with this because really the result of our financial audit is issuing an opinion on the district's financials. And so what you'll see here near the bottom of this page is an opinions paragraph. And in there, we just explained that we issued a clean opinion, just stating that the financial statements are fairly presented. Also at the very bottom, whenever there are significant changes in accounting principles, those are also disclosed in this report. And so I just wanted to show you that there was one for the prior fiscal year. So we are looking at the 2021 audit. And so there was an emphasis of a matter you'll see there with the new accounting standard had to do with fiduciary activities and what's considered a fiduciary activity for the governmental entities. And what that did is it changed in the sense that student body activities are now looked at as being part of your governmental funds, not a fiduciary. So those have now been in the audit combined with your traditional funds as well. I'll have you now turn to page 3. Rather than going through the actual financial statements, this section of the audit, which is the management's discussion and analysis, has tables in here that are easier to read, and they also provide a comparison to the prior year. So I will be going through this section of the audit to go over the financial information. The first item I wanted to point out in the financial highlights at the top of this page is that the total net position of the entity was a deficit of approximately 58 million. Now, I do want to point out when I say net position, this is in reference to the district's financials on the full accrual basis of accounting. And what that means is it includes items you don't normally see in your interim financials, such as your capital assets and your long-term debt. And so what you'll see as I go through some of these tables is that long-term debt is really what you'll see is making that deficit appear in your net position. And so as we go through those items, you'll see that. So I'll have you now turn to the first table in this section, which is on page 4. You'll see table 1. And this is where in that 2021 column, you'll see what makes up that total net position of approximately negative 58 million. Again, this is a combination of all the district's funds, along with all the capital assets and the long-term debt at the district. I'll point out some changes from the 2020 to the 2021 year. You'll see that the cash and other assets increased by about 8 million. The district did receive a TRAN during the 2021 fiscal year, so that contributes to that increase in cash, as well as the issuance of a bond in 2021 that was not fully spent. So that also attributed to that increase. The capital assets, the net capital assets also increased by approximately 5.6 million, primarily related to all the construction projects the district has going on. The largest being the Cesar Chavez multipurpose building, which is since complete, but that was part of that increase. Then the last item I wanted to point out regarding the change was your long-term debt as well as the deferred outflows of resources. These changes really relate to the district's total OPEB liability. So the district has an actuarial study performed by an outside actuary. It's done annually, but there is like a roll forward done each year. And so the assumptions they use and so forth could lead in changes in what they estimate that future liability to be. During this audit year, there was a new study done, and there was some changes in the assumptions that were used, which attributed to a large increase in your long-term debt relating to that liability. And what that OPEB liability is, that health insurance for retirees, that's really what that's representing, is that liability. So that liability increased by almost 30 million and compared to the prior year. Okay, I'll have you now go to table 2, which is on page 5. This table shows the change in the net position from the year for the year, just based on the change with the revenues and expenditures. So you'll see that there was an overall decrease in the net position. This decrease is a result of multiple items, primarily relating to some of the full accrual items like depreciation expense, as well as there is a difference between your full accrual pension expense and your OPEB liability expense compared to what's seen in your governmental funds, and those attributed to this decrease in your net position for the year. Now I'll have you turn to page 6, and on here I want to show you table 4. So this table is a summarization of your governmental fund balances and activity. These are the traditional funds and balances that you see during interim reporting. And so you'll see here that the overall fund balances in the governmental funds, if you look at the total from the beginning of the prior fiscal year to the end of June 30th, 2021, it was just a slight decrease of about 200,000. So you'll see that a lot of that net position change and the net position decrease is due to those full accrual type items that are not your traditional governmental fund balance items. I'll have you now look at table 5 on page 7. This is where you could see a detail of the change between the 2 years of your capital assets. And that's where you'll see that work in progress amount, that increase from 3.5 to 8.6 million in all the construction projects that were going on at the time. Now at the bottom is table 6. This is a summarization of all the district's long-term debt, which, like I explained, has a lot to do with that net position deficit the district shows. The overall long-term debt between the 2 years increased by about 38 million. The net pension liability, which has to do with the district's proportionate share of your STRS and PERS pension liability, that increased by about 4.3 million. Then you'll see that total OPEB liability. It went from 46 to the 75.7 million. And like I said, that had to do with the actuarial determined liability amount based on the actuarial study they performed and the assumptions made. The district also issued the $4 million bond in 2021. So you'll also see there that the general obligation bond balance increased. All right, I'll have you now turn to page 56. We're kind of going to skip ahead now. This schedule is the schedule of the financial trends and analysis of the district's general fund, so your primary operating fund. And so this is showing over the last 3 years, and then what was budgeted at the time when the audit was during the unaudited actuals, what was budgeted for the 21-22 school year. So you'll see here the general fund itself had an overall increase in fund balance. And you'll see that in that 1.9 million. So the general fund balance did increase. This was primarily relating to, there were some state COVID funds that were not spent by year end. And so that attributes to that fund balance there. I also want to point out that once we get into the findings, we did have a apportionment significant finding that's already been incorporated in this as well. I also want to point out that the average daily attendance for the year we're auditing was funded off your 1920 ADA. This audit year was the year of distance learning. There was no attendance reporting to the state. The last item on the schedule I just wanted to also point out was the percentage that you'll see, the available reserves as a percentage of total outgo. The state recommends a percentage of 3%. So we just like to point out that you did meet that percentage and you were expected or are expected to meet it for the 21-22 year based on the budget. All right, I'll have you now turn to page 62 and 63. All that this is, I like to point out that we also, as well as the financial portion of the audit, we do audit compliance with state and federal requirements. This report here shows all the state compliance requirements that that were applicable to be audited for the 2021 fiscal year. This area is the area that we found our audit findings. And so we do have 6 audit findings that relate to state compliance requirements, which we'll get into next. I'll have you turn to page 64 and 65. What this report represents is our opinion and reporting on your federal programs that we audited as major programs. So during the 2021 year, we audited the ESSER program, the Corona Relief Fund program, and your federal special education program. And we did not have any findings relating to these areas. So now if we turn to page 67, this is where we'll start going over the audit findings that we had. This first audit finding is the apportionment significant audit finding that we had. So I want to just explain that this 2021 year, once again, was the year of distance learning. And the compliance requirements we were required to audit were like new one year time type of requirements that are now gone for the 21-22 school year. One of those requirements was that all students were to be offered and enrolled for a minimum amount of minutes each day to then be able to count that day for a day of instruction. And the minimum amount of days of instruction that should have been offered should have been 180 days. So during our audit process, we noted that there were some 12th grade pupils that were not offered / enrolled for that minimum amount of 240 minutes a day. And what that did was result in the audit finding and an associated audit penalty. And so you'll see under the question costs, that penalty calc of approximately 1.8 million. This impact of this finding and the penalty has already been incorporated in these financials, meaning a liability has been booked for that amount in these financials already. So the impact that that has on the bottom line is incorporated in the financials that we've gone over. Now I'll have you turn to page 69. This was another instructional time related finding. Since the district was not in person and they were in distance learning, the way that the instructional time was certified was, it was supposed to be certified by an employee of the LEA who possesses a valid certification document. Each district did this a little differently. What happened here at Parlier was that the engagement records that were used did not incorporate that time value certification to be signed by the teachers at the time. And so we were provided a retroactive certification by a certificate employee of the district who's certified to the time value of the assignments for the year during distance learning. So therefore, there's no question cost since it was done retroactively, but it was not done contemporaneously, which is why it's reported here as just an informational finding. The third finding on page 70 relates to kindergarten continuation. So each student who continues in kindergarten for their second year is required to have a signed kindergarten continuance form. It's a state mandated form. During our audit, we found a student that was retained from the 1920 year to the 2021 year. But a properly completed retention form was not provided to us for audit. Based on discussion with staff, it was an oversight that it wasn't completed. Since there was no attendance reporting for the 2021 year, there's no fiscal impact of this. Normally, that second year of ADA is disallowed when this occurs, but because there was no attendance reporting for 2021, there's no fiscal consequence to the finding. The fourth finding on page 71. This is also somewhat an informational finding. Districts are supposed to have their attendance accounting system approved by the CDE. There was a transition of the district's attendance system between different providers. And so we reach out to the CDE, especially since it was our first audit year out here, just to make sure the district had their system approved. And they indicated it had not yet been approved yet. What also occurred was for the 2021 school year only, districts were allowed to do electronic signatures rather than print out and have the teachers sign their rosters. If they went through a proper channel to have their independent auditor provide them with a letter indicating they reviewed the system for its integrity. None of that had occurred, but the district did go ahead and do everything digitally. There's no question costs relating to this. It's just the controls weren't in place to make sure that was all approved ahead of time. I believe the district's in the process of submitting their attendance system for approval, and we will work with the district we have to perform some additional procedures before we could provide our auditor letter that could get submitted to the state with the approval packet to make sure that it all gets approved. I do believe in the 21-22 fiscal year, which the audit is not complete yet, they continue to do digital signatures. So we might have another informational finding relating to this for next year's audit, since it had not been approved prior to it being utilized for the 21-22 year. All right, on page 73, you'll see our fifth finding. This had to do with the comprehensive school safety plan and the process in which it should have been updated and then later approved. The district approved the plan in March of 2021, but before adopting the plan, the school site council did not present the school safety plan at a public meeting at the school site that allowed for public opinions. This is a criteria they have us audit. Due to COVID and unable to be meeting in person, the school site council was not able to meet and have that meeting for that public opinion. So we don't believe there to be any question costs relating to this. It just, because it didn't go through the proper channels, we had to report the finding. The last finding on page 74 has to do with the classroom teacher salaries. Unified school districts should expend 55% of the district's total educational expenses for the current year on salaries for classroom teachers. The district can be granted an exemption from the county superintendent of schools if that percentage is not met. The percentage was not met, and so the district did and has already obtained that exemption with the county superintendent of schools. We're still required to report the findings since it wasn't met, but there is there's no fiscal consequence for that since exemption was received from the county superintendent of schools. So in closing, this was a kind of difficult audit to get through. We had new staff at the district, as well as we were new auditors to the district, but we were able to get through it. And we like to thank the district staff for the help that they did do to make sure that we got through the audit process at the end. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. So I have a motion to approve H1. Motion, Mr. Vasquez. Do I have a second? Second, Ms. Tienda. Do you have any public comment on H1. Okay.
Just making some notes. Thank you.
Mr. Matas?
Well, thank you for enlightening me. Obviously, we have a lot of issues that we need to deal with. One of the main concerns is that the violation, especially at the high school, I'm very concerned about that because that affects it shares with me that we're not on top of our game. And so we have these issues come to light and that either somebody's not completing, completing their task and making sure that we meet our state guidelines, it creates chaos. And I know that you folks are there to assist us and we appreciate that. I do. I like the fact that you folks are keeping us abreast of all the issues. I think that financial responsibility is important for all of us as board members. And especially for me, because even though I have a master's degree in school administration, I don't have one in finance. And so being able to see the way you're able to break it up is very comprehensible and very easy for me to read and understand, and the way you were able to bring it to light. I am concerned about the fact that we didn't spend enough money for our teachers in the last, I think it was the last finding. But these are findings that I need to dissect. I need to review and bring it back for a discussion about how are we going to be proactive. We can't be in a reactive mode, but we have to make sure that everybody is doing. We have had a lot of change, especially in our CFO. Obviously, we see some areas of incompetency and the fact that some of the folks didn't do what they're supposed to be doing in some of the reports. That is a great concern to me, the fact that we didn't take care of business. But I think that the fact that you folks are here to assist us, to bring to light how we need to address these issues is very, very important to me, and I'm sure to the board. Anyway, I want to say thank you for bringing these items to attention to me and our board. Thank you.
Stand up.
Thank you so much for your detailed presentation. And thank you for explaining that some of these items were distance learning and things like that. And in regards to, I know you had mentioned too with teacher salaries, this is something that comes up. And I know sitting up here year after year, this is something that does come up yearly and something that I think is a little outdated. And so I don't even think it should be on here, but that's my personal opinion. It's just being able to learn and understand all of this beyond here.
Mhm.
So, and I know I've gone through some trainings. I still don't understand all of it, but I do understand that you guys know what you guys are doing and will guide us to what we need to do. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Hi, I'm just kind of reviewing what you already had reviewed, but I have a question on the findings for the attendance instructional time. On here, it's for the 12th grade level, affected grade 88 or the minutes. It says 232.88. They should have been at 240. Is that correct?
No, so what this calculation here is how the state, this calculation is the state's audit penalty finding. So what they require us to do is actually all the 12th grade ADA district-wide is how the penalty is calculated. So the 12th grade ADA from the 1920 year, which was the last year ADA was submitted to the state, that's what that represents. And so the finding actually takes that ADA, multiplies it by like a per ADA amount, which is at 13. And then there's like the 180, which are the days that were required to be offered. And the days short were the 103 days. This could have even just been for one 12th grader and the calculation would have been the same. It's a really odd calculation. This was more than one 12th grader, but even if it was just one, if that one student had less than the 240 minutes, this penalty calculation is applied against all that grade levels ADA. And we reached out to the state multiple times because we had other districts with a similar finding. And it was crazy that just one student being less could have that impact, and it could. But this was more than one. But it's a fraction and there's the calculation is a multiplication factor of that 103 divided by that 180, which are your days short, to come up with that finding amount. So that ADA of 232.88 is what's used to do the penalty calculation.
Okay, so that's where you guys got the 1.8 million.
Yeah.
Not 1.6. That was kind of questionable. And thank you for breaking it down. This is a nice breakdown of everything that, or all the findings that you guys came across and how you guys did the recommendations. Hoping that we start doing what is needed to fix the problems and the issues. Thank you.
Yeah. And I do want to emphasize that the finding 1 and 2 are kind of like one deal, one time requirements that will not be there again for this next fiscal year.
Mr. Vasquez?
Yeah, mine was the attendance issue too, because it was, there's too many moving parts to that situation. And for nobody to pick it up, that's where now it's a penalty of 1 point something million error is what we can't have. That's, you know what I mean? Yeah, thank you for breaking it down, everything that is happening and what needs to happen. Thank you again.
Yeah, thanks for the information. And I know with looking at, so if we look at some of these findings, it's because of the COVID, correct?
The first two are, the requirements were only relating to distance learning, and those will be gone for
And the
this
reason
next
that
year.
those weren't picked up beforehand was because
They weren't
they weren't
requirements.
requirements. So if
No.
we had past audits, if they would have had the same requirements as this audit, then they might have picked them up a long time ago, right?
Well, there was no really, the distance learning requirements and the documentation that had to be kept by the district and teachers was not like any traditional year where you just have a roster where you say absent, present.
Uh-huh.
There was engagement logs. Those engagement logs had to have what the students were doing. Was it asynchronous work, synchronous work? It was very detailed. And the district utilized the Aries software, which had these capabilities, and they had some like Google Classroom stuff that they did. That doesn't exist in a normal school year. So the 2021 audit and what was being audited was different than what was being audited in prior years.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't like that documentation wasn't even there to be audited. It was a completely different way to track the student engagement because they were not live in a classroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have one more question. So it was during the distant learning. So then the guidelines were given to our district to follow during that distant learning. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe, well, the state issued a lot of information and the CDE issued a lot of guidance on it. And I think there were some trainings that were put out there. I know that we even sat in on some of the PowerPoints that they did because we had to have a good understanding of what it was too. So the state did put out that guidance. Yeah.
Okay, so that would have been given to the superintendent, chief business officer, and then the principal as well to follow the guidelines.
At that time, yeah,
at that
yeah.
time. Okay, thank you.
I do want to be able to make note, because if it was because of that 1 year, a lot of leeway was given to districts as to how to be able to report that time attendance as well. Certainly not being able to excuse any lack of documentation, but because of that particular year and the one-time application of rules, there was a lot of leeway that was given to districts to be able to document.
Yes,
such.
like the documentation requirements for the distance learning, the state put out like a template that could be used. That would not have necessarily eliminated the issue with this first finding, which was really it was when they were scheduled. So when they were doing the work and they were tracking the engagement, that all was fine. But yeah, districts had leeway on what type of documentation to use to meet those requirements. And the district's documentation for their distance learning was primarily out of the Aries software with additional assignments to help that process. But like I said, this first audit finding really had to do with those seniors in grade 12 near the second semester when they were just enrolled for less than the full day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All in favor of passing H1, signal by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you.
Moving on to 2, approval of audit findings, corrective actions plans. Mr. Beecher.
So now that we have findings, am I getting picked up, Franklin? Okay, thank you. We have to issue an action plan to address these findings. And so you'll find included the letter from the county identifying that we need to do that, and the action, which these actions are actually included in the audit report as part of the district response already. And so this is the action plan. As a very quick review, the first finding, of course, is the attendance one. I'm sorry. It falls under attendance, but it's actually was an enrollment issue more than an attendance and engagement tracking issue. It was the fact the kids were not enrolled for enough minutes, not that they weren't attending. So just to kind of clarify the difference, okay? And so because this was a one-time review and one-time year, the action plan basically is it's not reviewable again. However, if this instance comes about, the district will take more care in establishing systems to make sure we meet this, okay? We also have been reviewing all of the kids and making sure they're enrolled in enough classes at the high school, so we're better prepared, okay? The second finding was the certification, and again, that was a one-time under COVID, so it will not apply in the future. Kindergarten continuation, we've already, the program department has looked at what happened and why this student was retained, and we didn't have all the proper paperwork. This actually is a finding that shows up more often than you would think. We just missed the paperwork documentation of the parents saying, yes, they agree to have their student retained, or they request their student be retained. So we've reviewed that. The fourth finding, the attendance accounting, I've already got the packet. It's almost complete. We will need the letter from the auditor. They will look at the way we do our attendance. They already have a feel for it, but they'll do a couple other checks. They'll write a letter to say our system is compliant with the requirements of an electronic attendance signature system, and then we'll be in compliance with that. So this will show up again for 21-22, because rather than generate tens of thousands of pages of signed forms, we agreed that we are meeting the need to be accurate. And so we felt like it was okay. We'll take the finding for 21-22, which we just ended because we can't change it now, and we'll move forward. So, okay. And then the fifth finding, the safety plan, again, that was more related to people being unable to meet, and therefore the approval date was after the inspection date. So that's an easy one to fix in a normal year. And then the sixth finding was the cost of education, which is instructional salaries. We say teacher salaries, but actually includes instructional aides and things. The district has not met this requirement since the LCFF came into play, and I believe probably many years before that, but the records aren't all electronic to find. And so this is based in a foundation decades old. And so I made a note to try to bring you some of the data I had already pulled to show you some of the trends. When we continue to spend funds for program improvements, on additional software, on outside consultants for staff development, it raises the denominator of our expenditures.
and our salaries stay consistent with the number of students for the most part. And so it tends to change that percentage. So I would expect this finding to probably carry forward for some time. Okay. So I'm asking you to approve this action plan so that it'll be recorded at the county and we'll continue to work on it.
Do I have a motion for H2? Motion, Mr. Vasquez. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Modis. Any public comment on H2? None? Bring it back to the board. Ms. Gonzalez?
Just that one comment on that 1.8 million that we're having to pay back, being that we weren't following guidelines is unacceptable. We need to make sure that we are on top of everything that's given. It's just disappointing. That's a lot of money. Thank you.
If I can help clarify a piece, we went back and we found that for the 20 years since we went on a digital system, back to 2002, we've had this same issue with under-enrolled students. It just didn't show up in an audit until COVID changed the rules for the audit. So this has been in place for many, many, many years. Unfortunately, COVID caused things to change. I did find information about filing an appeal on this finding. I don't have a lot of hope, but I will, once we receive the letter from the state, I will file an appeal. I have 30 days to say, here's why we don't agree with this, and at least go through the process. It says the State Board of Education cannot waive this finding in the law that put this in place, which is kind of weird. They put that right in the law, but it's worth a shot. So I'll do my due diligence for it. Okay.
Mr. Modis?
No, I just, again, I'm just concerned about our finances and making sure that we're on top of our game, especially when we're making sure that we're monitoring all of these deadlines and so on. I just wanted to say that we need to be fiscally savvy in terms of making sure that we're accountable for all of these guidelines. Thank you.
Well, everything happens for a reason all the time. So unfortunately, COVID happened, and I guess our district went in two ways. First, we got ESSER funds, which we got $40 million free from the state to help improve our district. And a downside was this new finding in this audit, which what happened was not new, as we saw it. It was happening back in 2002. And so I'm glad that it was found now, because if it would have prolonged and if they would have went back several years, it probably would have been more than 1.8 million. So I'm grateful that it was found. I'm grateful that it's only 1.8 million, giving back 1.8, but we got, someone do the math, 1.8 minus $40 million.
38.2.
$38.2 million. So trying to see both sides, it's unfortunate that we do have, this did happen. It's unfortunate that when a penny even gets taken away from our students, it's not okay. But it's something that we're going through. It's something that we're learning. At least now we know from here on out, we know what we need to do. And I'm grateful that it was caught. And so thank you for being diligent. I'm grateful for the audit company and finding that. Because if it was any more, or if it's more in the future, we do not learn from this mistake, then that's where in the future, you will see me standing there at the podium yelling at everybody, because I will be a community member at that point. So yeah, so just thank you for everything, and we got to do what we got to do.
Yeah, thank you for getting those corrected, having a plan to get them corrected, Mr. Beecher, and let us know how that appeal goes. I know you've been searching high and low to try to figure out how we can get some of that money back. But it is, I know as far as, how long the LCF as far as the teacher salary?
The first year was 2012-13. but it took a little time, for implementation.
Yeah, because
so-
I do know, since I've been on the board, we've always done that waiver for instructional
Salaries.
salaries, yeah. So, I mean, and I think we're probably not one of the only districts that does it. So it's been like that for, what, at least 10 years, so, or more, but, so, just that way people know the history behind that. Also, I mean, it is what it is with that finding. Thanks for going back and researching and doing the research to say that, but that comes back to past practice, right? We do things that were taught back and then until we have a change in the bar, then we find out that we're doing it wrong, right? So luckily, it's only for that 1 year that they changed that bar. And-
One semester.
Or one semester, yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, so thank you for doing that research and finding out that it was just past practice that they've been doing this for so long that now it caught up to us because they moved the bar, they moved the expectations. So thanks again. All in favor of passing H2, signal by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passed 5-0. Moving on to H3, approve resolution number 08, designated certificated general funds as committed fund balance. Mr. Beecher.
So when we approved the budget, we committed some funds because they had a specific purpose moving forward. We had leftover COVID funds. We had some LCAP funds, supplemental concentration funds from 2020-21, which were not required to be designated, but because we knew we were going into a period of increased costs, we wanted to carry forward and go ahead and keep those as LCAP funds versus rolling them into the general fund. Given the situation with our finding, rather than have that affect the general operations, since this money that we committed for LCAP was allowed to be swept to the general fund in 2020-21, I'm asking you to uncommit that section of the funds so that we can go ahead and now hold this to deal with the audit finding. So it doesn't affect day-to-day operations. Okay, so
Thank you,
basically
Mr.
taking
Beach.
it out of savings.
Thank you, Mr. Beecher. I have a motion to approve H3. Motion, Mr. Vasquez. Do I have a second? Second, Ms. Tienda. Any public comment on H3? None? Bring it back to the board. Any comment from the board? Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes, I do have a comment. The $1.8 million were in our general funds and it was uncommitted funds, but we were holding it for specifically to be able to spend on our students. Now we're having to pay regardless when this happened. It goes back to superintendent, chief business officer, and a principal, because now we're having to pay this $1.8 million out of that fund. We cannot pay with the COVID money that we received. That is very disappointing that this was not caught. And regardless if it went back, but at the time being that it wasn't caught with the new guidelines that were given to us. I just want to say that we have to be on top of this. This is a lot of money. This is not like a $500 check that we're just going to be cashing out and paying back. So I just wanted to voice my thoughts on this. Thank you.
Mr. Modis?
Yeah, the fact that the 1.8 is, we can't afford to give money back, whether it be $5 or 5 cents or whatever it may be. But again, I mean, whenever superintendent, CFO, people are in charge, they're accountable for any type of money. The fact that we have to give back that large amount of money is going to hurt our kids. And but we have to make sure that we're accountable and we're fiscally. I always talk about the fact of being proactive. We got to be proactive in finance, proactive in the HR, making sure that we're on the cutting edge and understanding every aspect, because it's a lot of money, and our community cannot afford to give back money. Yes, we may get 40 million or whatever, but we can't afford to give, even $1,000 back. But I would ask our CFO to appeal see if we can get any of that money back. That's very important. Thank you.
Ms. Janda?
I forgot to mention earlier, thank you for putting in that appeal and trying to do what we can. You know, it is trying to do what we can, and just going back to superintendent after superintendent that came through here did not catch that. And I believe, Mr. Matas, you're an interim superintendent here as well. So being that you didn't catch that either, it's hard because you're able to, you know, it happens. And so, unfortunately, it should never happen again. And from here on out, thank you.
Yeah, it goes back to, and it really not at the district level, it's going back to the people that don't understand about the minutes, which has to go back to the people the ones that put the kids in that situation to not give them their minutes. And that's one of the things that we've been trying to bring up, that a lot of times that the people that we have in these certain positions, you know, we're given these jobs and they weren't up to capable of being able to do that job. So then now we're in the situation where we're learning a 1.8 million situation where now we gotta watch minutes at the district office where the minutes should be being watched at the school site. So that's the thing, is that that's where the accountability does come into that. You know, I don't think anybody here is scheduling kids in the classroom. And so that's the thing, is that to be able to know these are the rules that have to be happening with all kids. And like we said, this was just 1 year. That's the thing, is that, I mean, this has been happening for years. So again, meaning whoever we're putting these kids in or giving them half days to be able to release them. Somebody did that and they just kept going creature of habit and just keep doing it over and over and over. And again, it's a 1.8 million mistake for us to be able to understand this. But yeah, I mean, as long as we got the plan to try to fulfill this, to make it better, that's what we're leading to.
So just for clarification, Mr. Beecher, this is 2020, 2021, correct?
2020,
The
2021.
beginning of COVID, correct?
It was the first full year of COVID because
okay.
we shut down in March of 2020.
Okay. So meaning that we could say superintendent, the financial director, and the high school principal at that time didn't catch it, correct?
And yes, and I have to say, the audit guide that they work from was not released until the spring of 2020, 2021 for the 2020, 2021 school year. So the calculation for this finding, it wasn't even possible to know what it could be, because all we were dealing with was the guidance on how to track engagement to make sure that we had students engaged. We already knew 180 minutes in continuation, 180 minutes in kindergarten, 240 minutes. We already knew those things. I mean, I wasn't here, but where I was, we had no way to anticipate this variant of the attendance minute review at that time when we started that year. Even though it was systemic here, you know, it goes back a long ways, I'm not sure anyone could have caught it, no matter what you looked at, because the guidance wasn't even produced until the spring. Usually the audit guide for the current school year is produced by the state in about December of the year you're working on. So you kind of like the budget. You go in, you do a budget before the budget's approved by the state. And so you do your best, but most years there's not much change. Okay. COVID changed it, so. Okay.
So I just want to clarify that at that time, those administrators and the audit team didn't catch it, but it probably was like that at other districts, like the financial like the auditor said, because it changed.
Yes, and the way attendance is tracked in a normal year, including 21-22, the audit we have started for last year. It is very unlikely a finding like this could ever be found because it's not checked in the same way. They look at the instructional minutes of the school, they look at individual student attendance by day, do they have valid absences, et cetera. The enrollment component is not an auditable item. So that's why for years, the auditors didn't pick it up, is that's not what they're looking at. They're looking at the availability, were the minutes offered, not necessarily enrolled. So, but because of engagement, it changed the rules.
So, all right, thank you for that. I just wanted to clarify that what year this was. It wasn't like last
This
year
is not last year.
or a year and a half ago. This was almost 3 years ago, and 2021, right? So, and it's been happening before, just the parameters changed, so now they caught it.
And I have to say, one of the reasons this audit report is to you in August instead of January is the constant going around and around about reviewing and trying to find ways to mitigate this. We were able to mitigate, so there was no fall semester. So this is only spring semester and only for the 12th grade.
Thank you.
So if I may, Mr. Molina, certainly we've heard a lot of statements of variables that went into this crazy year of audit, the unknowns. And certainly when I was hired back in August of 2020, the imminent task at hand for me was to be able to get kids back in school. As a superintendent of schools, the buck certainly stops here. And I hear Ms. Gonzalez, and I hear Mr. Mares, and I hear the rest of the board talking about being held accountable. Certainly not the only thing that I was focused on. I know that the guidelines came out at the end of my first year here. And I think that we can all be able to point fingers, how many years back, et cetera. As with everything that I do, the board, the public, staff have my full commitment that we will be able to put measures in place so that we continue on moving forward and putting things in place so that this doesn't happen again. Now, as we go forward, and as the board knows of different challenges that we face, seems that we fix something, we notice something else, we notice something else. Certainly upholding our emphasis on the cycle of continuous improvement, want to be able to improve as many things as possible and as many things that are going on at the same time. So I do want to be able to say that I hear you, not taking any accountability away from my shoulders, as I knew exactly what I was entering in when I became a superintendent. I think that we have staff in place that are here for the benefit not only of our children, but the benefit of the entire community. I don't take this finding lightly in any way. So then we're being able to move forward, certain that we have things in place to be able to prevent as many things like this from happening again. Will similar things happen? Perhaps, because this is just one particular thing in audit that was specified. We have audits every single year, and every single year the law continues to change. We'll do our best to be able to keep up with everything else. As with everything, the board has my full commitment working for the district 24/7, as I have since August 26th of 2020. Thank you.
All in favor of passing H3, signal by saying aye.
I have one more question, I'm sorry. I just seen it right here. $1.8 million is what they're justifying, but the estimated amount is 2 million that we're going to be.
So the original commitment was approximately $2 million. So
okay.
I'm just reversing that specific line that was in the original commitment. Because it wasn't a specific amount because of it being, an unclosed, unaudited number.
Mhm.
So when we did our budget this year, we committed approximately $2 million. They were estimates, and so because
Okay.
that's what committed, I just completely reversed it.
Okay, so we're uncommitting the 2
That,
million
just
again.
that one piece, yes. Just to have it available so that we can kind of make this go away. Um, So, and,
Thank you for clarification.
and just so you're aware, the audit guide came out in March 1st of 2021 for the 2020-2021 school year. So the information the auditors were going to use to do this, there was no way to address it in August. So,
Thank you, Mr. Beecher. All in favor of passing H3, signal by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passed, 5-0. We're on the floor, public hearing regarding sufficient of textbook and instructional materials. We're gonna go to, public hearing. The time is 7:40. We are in public hearing.
That'd be me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ms.
So,
Felder,
it's
Dr.
okay.
Felder.
Felder Guerrero, right? This is public hearing regarding sufficiency of textbook and instructional materials. So this is done annually pursuant to the requirements set forth by the California Ed Code, section 60119, as amended by Senate Bill 550. The Parlor Unified School District is holding a public hearing regarding the determination that each pupil in the school in the district has sufficient textbooks or instructional materials or both for all core subject areas. And so the purpose of this hearing is for staff and community members to provide input regarding the sufficiency of textbooks. So all interested stakeholders are encouraged to comment at this time.
Any public comment on H4? None? Any comment from the board?
No comment, thank you.
Modest? Stand up.
I just want to make sure that all our kids, we do have sufficient materials at each school site, correct?
Yes, that'll come with the resolution, but yes.
So I want to make sure because, at times they say, yeah, we have books, but the books are all torn up. They're in the back and they're not new or they're not, they're revised or used and, they're not able to actually utilize them and so on. But, we just want to make sure that we're in compliance with everything. In the past, when they come over, they're always finding something, right? And we don't want to find something. We want to make sure that we're proactive and that we're not in a reactive mode, that make sure that all our students are in compliance and all our items are in compliance so that we don't get any violations and things of that nature.
Yes,
you.
they do an initial in the spring for an inventory, the admin and the teachers. And then those orders are put in July 1 for the fiscal year. And then we do it again in preparation for a Williams visit in early August so that we double check anything to make sure that there's no gaps. So that by the time school starts, all of our materials are here and students have what they need.
Is this different from the Williams Act that we're talking about textbooks?
It's part of the Williams.
It is part of it, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
but we did not receive a visit this year. We did not receive a visit for instructional materials.
Okay, thank you.
We still followed the process, but we did not receive a visit.
Oh, I thought they were officially trusted.
No,
I know
we
they go
act-
to other districts.
we fell under different guidelines, so we didn't have to have one, which was nice. So they finally changed the requirements to catch up to our current system, finally, after 9 years.
Thank you for that. And we're currently on track, right, with our revisions? As far as
You mean our adoption cycles?
adoptions? Yeah, I'm sorry.
We
yeah.
are, the state finally posted a different adoption cycle. They had pushed 2 of the adoptions just because of COVID, and then publishers and materials and the framework, because it has to follow a certain number of years between each one. So they just posted it, and we are right in line with each of our adoptions.
Thank you for that, because I know when I first started, we were like way behind. We were like 10 years behind or something like that. It was crazy.
Technically, we are up for adoption for math due to the last cycle, but due to COVID, CDE changed the guidelines. So their new revised guidelines are, it's 2024 now.
Okay, thank you. No further questions? Time is 7:44. We're going back into open session. Moving on to H5, approval resolution number 04-2223, sufficiency of textbooks and instructional materials. Builder and Dr. Guerrero.
Yeah, this is to actually approve the resolution for sufficiency of textbooks and instructional materials. And again, pursuant to same ed code, section 60119, the Parlor Unified School District Board of Trustees is recommended to approve the resolution for pupil textbook and instructional material sufficiency for fiscal year 22-23. And then you have attached the resolution along with the list of grade level of each textbooks currently in Parlor Unified Classrooms.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve H5? Motion, Mr. Vasquez. Do I have a second? I'll second it. Any public comment on H5? None? Bring it back to the board, Ms. Gonzalez.
No, I have no comment. Thank you.
Mr. Modis?
No, no, not at all. Thank you.
Hacienda? Vasquez? And I ain't got nothing. All in favor of passing H5, signal by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passed, 5-0. Moving on to 6, approval of consolidated application. Barboa.
Good evening, board members, board president, Superintendent Guerrero, cabinet, and community members. My name is Rosie Barboa. I'm the Director of Categorical Programs and Compliance. And before you, we have the consolidated application. And just to give you a brief background on the consolidated application, it is used by the Department of Education to distribute categorical funds from various federal programs to county offices, school districts, and district-funded charter schools throughout the state of California. Typically, we provide 2 reporting times throughout the school year for the CONAP, and it's completed. The first submission is the spring release, and it typically opens between mid-May to the beginning of July, and the deadline is approximately 6 weeks after that. This is new for the 22-23 school year. So the spring release documents the participation of these programs and provides assurances that the district will comply with the legal requirements of each of the programs that we are applying for. So the program entitlements are determined not by the districts, but by the programs and the formulas contained within the laws that are created within the programs. The second release is called the winter release, and the winter release is typically, it opens in mid-January and closes on February 28th. This submission is when the districts are given the district entitlements for each of the funded programs. So today's consolidated application is for applying for the state and federal programs, along with fiscal reports and assurances from the district that we are applying for categorical funding. If you look at your report for today, for the CONAP, we have 15 pages in this application. Pages 1 through 7 are fiscal reports for previous expenditures for the federal and state funding. On pages 8 through 15, you'll see the state assurances for this new application for state and federal funds for the year 22-23. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve H6. Motion, Mr. Vasquez. Do I have a second? Second, Ms. Tienda. Any public comment on H6? None? Bring it back to the board. Any comment from the board? Ms. Gonzalez?
None, thank you.
Mr. Modis?
None, thank you.
Ms. Tienda? Vasquez?
Hey, thank you, Rosie.
Thank you.
And I ain't got none. Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely.
All in favor of passing H6, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passed 5-0. Moving on to H7, approval resolution proclaiming September as National Attendance Awareness Month. Mr. Torres.
Good evening, Superintendent Dr. Guerrero, School Board President, Mr. Molina, and members of the board. My name is Praxedes Torres III, and I am the district's Child Welfare and Attendance Coordinator. And I would love to share that our district, along with the entire nation, will be recognizing and declaring September as National Attendance Awareness Month. Throughout the month of September, Parlor Unified Schools will raise awareness of the importance of school attendance through our superhero campaign. Our theme is Superheroes Show Up on Time. Let's keep connected and keep learning. The campaign emphasizes that taking action to engage students and families is essential for addressing the absenteeism, enrollment declines, and educational inequities that have been amplified by the pandemic. Partnership with all stakeholders is key to help ensure that students are supported at home and in school. Our department and staff have been sending out positive messages through phone calls, letters, Parent Square, and our school marquees. We have banners around the city for our kids to see and to encourage our students on the importance of good attendance and to establish a positive environment, thereby creating a culture of kindness and respect. We are working together with students, parents, and staff with supporting and getting everyone to school every day and have the opportunity to learn, flourish, and realize their dreams. Our students have been having fun with our Attendance Awareness Dress Up Week, which includes days like, and for some examples, be a team player, wear a jersey day, cameo day, or what am I saying on? Hat day, head for success, and arrive to school on time. And of course, our superheroes have attended every school in the morning, and of course, greeted our students and just give them some positive messaging as welcoming them and thanking them for coming to school, attending school, and of course, for being on time. So, thank you.
So I have a motion to
questions?
approve 7. Motion, Mrs. Tienda. Do I have a second? Second, Mr. Vasquez. Any public comment on H7? None? Any comment from the board? Ms. Gonzalez?
No comment. Thank you for the presentation and thank you for the great job that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Smartest?
Anunia, I just wanted to commend you for all the great work that you're doing. When I see all those superheroes out there, I feel like I want to go out there and wear one of those uniforms. Would I be? I don't know. But I just think it's just so exciting to see all these kids so excited about dressing up and going to the school and encouraging them. Your leadership should be noted, recognized, and exemplified for what you do in our community. You're not just an employee, you're a leader in our community, and I want to commend you for all the great work that you do. You are to be recognized, and this work of attendance is extremely important. I know you've been at households. You go to the houses. You don't. It's not a job. It's a commitment to inspire and encourage and to motivate these kids to go to school. So again, I commend you. Keep up the great work. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Man, thank you. And we'll find the right character for you. Just come aboard. Last year, I told everybody it started with a student dressed as, we had a plan. Started with a student dressed as a Parler Panther mascot with a superhero shirt and a cape, and they had dance-offs at schools, and we knew what we wanted. It was just getting the courage for the students to step it up, and they did. Last year we had 50 students apply to be a superhero. This year we had, I think it was 42, and we're doing teams because it's hard to turn kids away, right? Their passion is to help out others, and I think we have about maybe 4 or 5 groups that will help out and visit the schools. And I think it's great because it doesn't take the instructional minutes from them.
Yeah.
So at the same time, they all get, to show, they all kind of bring their own thing. I think superheroes are all different. So they kind of bring their own type of character, their own person, who they are, and spread that love and stuff. And like I said, it's about building relationships with the families, the students, and that's what it's about, supporting others, helping each other. So thank you for that.
If you can find an outfit for me, I'm sure I want to challenge the rest of the board and our administrators to also to be involved in something like this too. I think this would be exciting. Thank you.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for always bringing student engagement with everything that you do with the activities, with the videos, and I know getting the awards. And there's a reason why you were chosen for that Fresno County Employee of the Year Award, because what you do is noticed, and we get recognized throughout the state for that. And I know you lead programs for the attendance and welfare. I know that you're like president you were president of that, and now you're exiting president of that. So thank you for being a good example for Parlor Unified out there, representing us well out there. And thank you for all that you and your team and your students do. Also, thank you for explaining that you have the different groups go out, because when you were right in my mind, I was thinking, oh, all the students are going to in the morning. Oh my gosh, and they're missing like class. Thank you for explaining that, your plan of doing the groups because of the instructional minutes, and they're not all of them are missing class all the time. So I really appreciate that explanation.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
that. And yes, being the president for the entire San Joaquin section, was an awesome. I mean, being from Parlier, like some of you say, wow, Parlier, right? It's picking like Dr. Guerrero being at the Fresno County. I mean, same thing for us, right? Parlier, we're doing some great things. And I think for us was amazing just to represent the bigger schools, who call us for questions as far as, what's going on towards, what are some of the laws, the new laws, or what are you doing in Parlier that's working out there? So that's great to support people. And now being past president, kind of step back though, and just get to present what our school does, or present our superhero campaign and how it came about and how we're moving forward. So I think we were on a good mission when we were on our plan, our first year plan, and then going into our fifth year plan right before COVID. And that was a hit for everybody. I mean, being recognized as the state model SARB is incredible, because you have to have, a low chronic absenteeism rate. You have to have a high graduation rate. And like I said, it takes a team, and thank God for, the team believing in it. And that goes for the administration, because that's their schools, right? So that's just giving them a plan and them saying, hey, you know what, plant a seed, and them running with it. So I think that's great. The attendance clerks have been amazing also. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for everything you do. Motivate the kids.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for bringing this resolution. And like you just said it, Parlor's been recognized, from attendance, because I know back in the day, we probably didn't have the best attendance to be recognized with attendance. Now, there's other areas where we're being recognized, right? That little town of Parlier, right? And for good things, because it's always bad things, right? We always hear the bad stuff coming out of here, but you know what? We have you representing us at the county and state level. Now we have a superintendent going and representing us, for the whole county. And I'm sure this school and the work they're putting in one day is gonna be recognized for the work they're putting in, but that all works together. Like you said, it's all the same component, right? It works as a team, because without you, those kids won't get here to this school to learn, right? Without, the direction of the superintendent, they're not gonna learn and get some of these grants and the training. So, it all works as a unit. And if all of us work together, our kids are gonna be, our school district will be recognized for a lot more things, So, I just like the way you said that it's a unit, that has to work together. And that's very important. Not only the unit here at school, but the family unit at home, and that's where you come in, and your department, and our FACE program, they come in. And I know I've talked to you about you working with them very closely as far as, reaching out to these the parents and making sure they have the support they need for their kids to attend school. And there's other aspects that we talk about as a board, to say, how do we get our community more involved as far as, our businesses and stuff like that. So, and I know you guys have a lot of, you go out there and reach out to them. So I think once we're really working as a one unit, you'll start really seeing the improvement in our test scores overall. Because that's ultimately, if our test scores ain't going up, then we've all failed, right? I mean, you could get them here, but if our kids ain't learning, then we've all failed as a district. But, it's good to see the work that you're putting in, that our teachers and our principals and our administrators are putting in to see those test scores rise. That's awesome, and you have your part in it, and thank you for doing your part and going above and beyond to making sure they get here. So thank you.
Thank you. And once again, I think that just goes back to, we're so concerned because the state looks at our test scores and, and what's going on out there. But, we've got to look at the start of it, and that is attendance. If they ain't here, right, then we can't help them with, their needs at home. What support do they need at home, at school? Meaning, is it connectivity with the electronics or the internet? And that of course, we have our department to help out with that with Mr. Barella. Is it food? And our department jumps on that. We have a lot of churches that help us out. And over the Christmas, I believe I delivered about 90 boxes of food right before break. I think I started like at 3 and finished like at 9 at night, but I mean, it was worth it, because I know they weren't going to have the food for those months. It was the best we could do. And I think at the end is, right, we talk about mental health, which is huge now, that COVID really came and really changed a lot of things and really brought us back to, our kids and parents maybe having bad habits. So it's our job to support them and say, you know what, we're in this together. How can we support you? And I think that's probably huge. You have suicidal prevention month. And I think with that, right, if kids aren't at school, how can we find out what's going on with them? When they're at home, we should be concerned. We don't know what's going on. So our job is go and of course, look for them, find them and bring them to school. Our department always goes off of our saying is, we're changing and saving lives. So that's what we look at. We want to change them and save their lives at the end. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tienda, do you have any more?
I was just gonna say, when you said our test score's not good enough, and I was gonna say, guess what? Our test scores went up.
Yeah.
You said. at the
Yeah.
end.
So that was,
Yeah.
thank you, Mr. Torres, for that presentation. All in favor of passing H7, signal by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passed, 5-0. Moving on to H8,
Thank you.
approved resolution, Hispanic Heritage Month, Dr. Guerrero.
Yes, Hispanic Heritage Month is intended to increase the awareness of the many Hispanic contributions to American culture and to show how diversified the Hispanic community is, also to promote a greater interest in young people as to the Hispanic history and culture. And so by being able to approve this resolution, the board is hereby recognizing September 15, 2022 to October 15, 2022 as National Hispanic Heritage Month, and encourages all Purlear Unified School District schools in the Purlear community to observe this month with appropriate and meaningful ceremonies and activities based on the 2022 theme, Unidos, Inclusivity for a Stronger Nation. Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve H8? Motion, Mr. Vasquez. Do I have a second? Second, Ms. Tienda. Any public comment on H8? None? Bring it back to the board. Ms. Gonzalez?
No comment, thank you.
Mr. Matis?
I just say, I think it's important that we recognize Hispanic Heritage Month in our community in Parlier. It's important that people that come to our schools feel validated, whether they speak English, Spanish, or Hmong, or whatever language they speak. It's important for our kids to feel that, be proud to be Mexican American or Mexicanos, Chicanos, lo que sea. But it's very, very important that we affirm and we validate our culture, our students in our community, especially our parents that come wanting to desire that they want the best for our students. So again, happy Hispanic Heritage Month. It's just going to be, hopefully we have some great activities planned for this year, for this month. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Ms. Tienda?
Thank you. It's nice that we are able to recognize this month. And even though it's a multiple month, it's good that we're not just picking and choosing, and we're celebrating the month for what it is. Thank you.
Yeah, and supporting the culture.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Guerrero, for bringing this to us. All in favor of passing H8, signal by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passed, 5-0. We're on to H9, intend to employ under the provisions of a variable term waiver. Dr. Reyes.
Yes, this is a one-time waiver. Go better. Yeah, this is a one-time waiver for a kindergarten dual immersion teacher. This is needed for them to waive the B-clad portion of the credential because for the provisional interim permit, they can do it for 1 year. So in having this waiver, it allows that teacher to grow, but also be in the classroom in the dual immersion setting.
Thank you. Dr. Reyes, I have a motion to approve H9. Motion, Mr. Vasquez. Do I have a second? I'll second it. Any public comment on H9? Back to the board. Any comment from the board, Ms. Gonzalez?
No comment, thank you.
Mr. Matis? Ms. Tienda?
None, thank you. But I do want to say I'm so excited to see that we as a district have supported her through her, she was an employee secretary, and now yeah, she's going to be in the classroom with our students. And we're not classmates, but we went to high school together. So it's really, really great to see that, that our staff are striving to, some staff are striving to be teachers. So thank you.
Yeah, that's the district, for us as a district supporting her need and to supporting her.
Yeah, so also agreed. That's awesome to see our own staff getting these positions and striving to be better and better themselves, and the district supporting them. Because with that, we'll have a long-term teacher. We'll have a teacher that's gonna be there for years, right? Because they're vested. So thank you. Yeah, so any support she needs, you know, we give it to her. So all in favor passing H9, signal by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed 5-0. Moving on to I, public comment on open and closed session agenda items. Pursuant to Board Bylaws 9323, individual speakers shall be allowed up to 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda or non-agenda item. The board shall limit the total time for public input on each agenda item to 15 minutes. The board shall also limit the total time for public input on non-agenda items under public comment to 20 minutes. And Marcy Masumoto, did I say that correctly?
You did great, yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Good evening, board members, administrators, and guests. My name is Marcy Masamoto. I am your area representative on the Fresno County Board of Education. I live right next door in Delray and represent the entire Area 4 of our county. I wanted to just introduce myself and reintroduce myself to some of you. I've seen many of you before. And explain a little bit about what the County Board of Education does. We're largely responsible for overseeing the budget of the Fresno County Superintendent of Schools, overseeing the court schools, as well as the appellate organization or agency or entity to hear appeals for interdistrict transfers that have been denied, expulsions that have been denied, and charter school denials. Those are our major responsibilities. I've been on the County Trustees Association as well as the California School Boards Association. I'm a representative for this area. And I am here to help you raise your voices. And I offer to do that in any way that I may. If you have some issues that you would like raised to either the county or to our legislators, I am happy to help raise your voices. A little bit about me. I told you I just live next door. I've lived here for over 40 years. I'm a part of a family farm. I'm also an educator, a background in public health, community development, and education. And have worked in all of those fields for many more than 40 years, I will say. Like you, I am here because I really care about kids. And what's important is that we all opt for the best opportunities that we can for kids. I really enjoyed the fact that you started talking about your academic programs, because that's really the essence of why we serve. I served on the Sanger Unified Board for 6 years prior to the County Board of Education. I'm finishing my first term. I am up for re-election, and I would like to ask you for your support and your vote, and if you'd help pass the word around. I feel that I have done a good job, and I'd like to continue serving all of you as well as the students of the district, of the county. I have some business cards that I'd like to pass around. I have both my County Board of Education card and then my election card. So I look forward to seeing you at Trustees Association events and in the near future. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Melissa Diaz.
Oh, wait, I wanted to say something really quick.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, Marcy, I wanted to say best wishes for you. I remember when I first met you, it was 4 years ago, and we were both at that event. I forgot what it was, but we were both going to be placed on the ballot to run for this term, this 4-year term. And I remember since the first day I met you, it felt like I've known you like forever. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for being a phone call away. I really do appreciate that, the times that I did have to reach out. So thank you.
I'd like to make a quick comment also. Marcy, I've known your husband for probably, I don't know, 35 years, read his articles, encountered him and have had some discussions with him, and he's a great writer. I finally was able to meet you also, right, to see who's the other part of the family there. But anyway, thank you so much. We appreciate you for coming to our meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you, and you're always welcome to come visit us.
I'm happy to do so. I'd love to do some fashion visits with you if I could sometime.
Yes. Melissa Diaz.
Good evening, board. I did not come with a speech, so I'm just gonna say what I want to say. Okay, so I am a mom. I'm also a parliamentarian. I played sports all my life. Yes, I did go varsity, but that was at a non-contact sports. Okay, so I have kids now, which I did want to take them out, but then I thought about it. I'm gonna leave my kids here and play football for Parlier. Yes, last year, football, we got destroyed. That's just the truth. 70-something-0, just destroyed. Parlier has now brought back, not years back, since my son has turned 5, they brought back the city football. Then they went to Wally's League. They have made a great program. Our boys are awesome. Right now, some of them are undefeated. They look amazing. And it's sad that now that they're coming to high school, even me, I'm thinking about taking my son out for the safety because they have to play varsity. They should not have to play varsity. We should have a JV team. The safety of our kids, of them getting from getting hurt. There's a lot of kids that are getting hurt. I feel like my kid feels like a spare, basically waiting for someone to get hurt. Then my kid's gonna go up next. My son weighs less than 100 pounds. He should not be in a varsity level. Does that mean, do I have to take him out after him playing since he was 5 years old? You know, these boys that are now our freshmen, they're amazing. Now they're actually scoring. Our freshmen, our line, our running backs, they look amazing. Could you imagine what our program would be in 2 to 3 years if they actually stayed in JV and not break a bone? Some of our boys are getting picked up, and freshmen getting thrown on the floor, getting stepped on. Yes, it's a contact sport, but do they really have to go up? It's like a peewee. If you know what a peewee is, that's a 7-year-old going up against a senior, which goes up to 12 to 13 before they come to high school. Is that fair? No, it's not fair. And the whole thing with me as working here and as a parent is safety. Yes, they said that we didn't have enough players. Our moms, that, like I said, we got together, we recruited players. They've come. And now that they've come, they got the practices. We're getting excuse after excuse after excuse. I don't think that it's fair as a mom that my son either has to wait the sidelines. Well, yes, you know, he can be a starter, but that's not their role. If you do your cards right, like any NFL or like the football, open up the JV, let these boys shine. They're good. And not pick them up to go varsity against, these are literally grown men. We're putting our JV players against grown men. Should they be forced to play varsity? No. Yes, they're good, but that doesn't mean you have to say, oh, you have to play varsity. No, you don't. It's a contact sport. And I feel, I don't know if they already made a stipend for the JV, but where's the games? I got a parent square meeting today that once again, varsity. When will JV start? That's why I was here, for my first reason.
Thank you, Ms.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
thank
do I
you.
go back down? Or do I, because I have 2. Or do you guys talk about it?
Or you get 3 minutes.
Okay,
Yeah. Is
but
it
it was
quick?
for two different things.
Yeah, you get 3 minutes total, but is it quick? How quick
Yes.
is it? Because I mean, you're the only one here, so we can
Okay.
give you.
So my son won the Sun-Made competition of the $5,000, and we all agreed for the murals and the garden and also for the food for the whole Benavides. You know, they all got their snacks, but it was, my son, high functioning autistic, he's kind of heartbroken because the week that they planted him, the very next week, that very next Monday, the grounds had to come out for their grounded, for our garden. So when will Benavides get back their garden? I work there, I see it, and I would like our school to get back the garden. So, yeah, those are the two reasons why I'm here.
Okay, thank you. All right. Moving on to J, board members report, superintendent's report. Trustees take the opportunity to highlight their interaction with students, staff, and or community. The superintendent report will focus on the district's 3 areas of focus: accomplished students, supportive environment, and empowered community. Trustees are encouraged to connect their items to Vision 25. They may also inform the public of upcoming events. Mr. Matas?
If we can go with Ms. Gonzalez first. We've been following the protocol. I appreciate it.
I'd just like to share that last Friday I was able to attend the football game, Parlia versus Chowchilla varsity team. Unfortunately, it was a loss, but our boys played hard. Parents and community members were there, as you heard Melissa Diaz stating that why isn't there a JV team playing yet? We don't know. Questions haven't been answered until today. Parent Square did send something out to some of the parents that are in the high school. While I was there, I had brought some points up to Dr. Guerrero as far as the sound system, the speakers, and, you know, just our stadium in general. I noticed that surrounding areas have updated theirs or renovated their stadiums. And why can't we do that for our students? Why can't we do that for our kids? I know that it's in the works. It has been talked about in the Vision 25, but I just kind of want to emphasize that if we have that's something that our students or kids would work even harder to come and maybe even stay to play in, you know, in our district instead of leaving us for Sanger, for Kingsburg, for Wrigley, for Selma, you know, vice versa, all those other schools that have nice stadiums. Sorry. I'm just saying that it would be nice to renovate our stadium. And that's just my thoughts and things. Thank you.
Mr. Matas?
Yeah, I just have 2 items. I do know that the Fresno Fair is coming up. And I do know that we have our partner students on FFA, and it's just so exciting to see our kids excited. All their kids from different areas. My daughter also is excited with FFA. They have goats and so on. But I think it's important to support our students in these efforts. The second item I wanted to share with you, I just wanted to keep you abreast. I would ask you, respectfully ask that I did ask for some information regarding some staff members at about over a month ago for some information. I was denied that. I would ask respectfully ask that I get the information so that I can see it. Failure to respond to my requests will allow me to address it with the Fair Practice Office in Fresno. I do want to let you know that it's a violation of my rights and also the Brown Act. With that, I just wanted to share. Thank you.
Would you remind me, Mr. Matas, what that information was regarding, please?
It was I can meet with the superintendent and I could discuss it with her. I could meet with you tomorrow if you like. I'll put it in writing.
Okay, thank you. If you can send me an email, appreciate it.
Ms. Tanda?
Because it's public and after you do discuss it, can you put it like on a Friday report, please? I'm not sure if that's okay. If whatever it is that he is talking about.
Right, I always strive to be able to communicate with the entire board what the request of one individual is. So depending on the nature of it, I'll be more than happy to be able to communicate to the board.
Thank you.
Mhm.
same this Friday, I had the pleasure of going out to the football game, and I was very excited, had the pleasure of going out and seeing my nephew take the field, and that was very, it was just, it felt great to be able to see that. Then be able to see some students that were, that joined a little late, still out there, supporting the team. Knowing the background and knowing that some students didn't want to participate, wanted to just not play and things like that. It was great being able to see them out there participating. I don't know who motivated them, but I'm so grateful that whoever it is motivated them and they're out there supporting as well. And I love the idea of recognizing our schools. I believe Dr. Guerrero, did your administration start that last year?
Yes, it was something that we started this last year. We had a night with 2 elementaries, another night with 2 elementaries, and a night with the junior high. This year, because our first game was moved from a Friday to a Thursday, we had minimum time to be able to plan. So we had all 4 of our elementary schools last Friday. So we had quite a showing.
Okay, yeah, and being out there and being able to see the kiddos running across the field and the stands packed with the parents there watching the game and watching their students run across the field. I'm sure that is something that the students will remember forever, and hopefully that's how we'll get more students motivated to go out there to play football, and that way we won't be in the predicament that we are in now. And it was a great feeling to be out there Friday Night Lights, and can't wait to attend more. And so I think that's all I have for this week. Thank you.
Just to go on, Mr. Manis, the fair, I think it's the 4.0. 4.0 is there too, no? For the academics?
Yes, so we have our secondary students that are invited to go. We have already processed their requests for buses, and we have a count of how many kids are going to be going.
One bus for each junior high and high school.
Yes.
And I also attended that Friday football game. It was good to see our kids out there. I get there a little late because the time I get out of work and drive over there, but it's good to see our kids out there. See our kids greeting them when they came on the field. All our elementary kids was awesome. The smile on their faces. They're there. They're in the with the lights on and everybody cheering for them. So also kudos to our high school kids that were cheering for those youngsters too, because as they're walking, you see the cheerleaders and our kids in the stands and our band. They're cheering them on. So right, so it's awesome. Our band, speaking of them, they came a long way, from not having one to where we're at now. I give a lot of credit to our band instructors in our the VAPA program that, they've come a long way in just a short time. So if we came this far in that short time, I could just imagine how we're going to be in a few years from now. It's really going to be impressive. But not that it ain't now, but it's going to be even more impressive. I don't want to hear the big green machine no more. I want to hear the big blue machine, so with that, I got nothing else. Dr. Guerrero?
Yes, so as part of my superintendent's report this evening, as usual, I have it in the 3 different categories: accomplished students, supportive environments, and empowered community. If Mr. Barella can go to the first slide, please. So we have Evan Torres, as you may recall, he set a few personal records last year in cross country. So he has already competed in several races, including the latest one, which was the Fresno Invitational, and he did come in first place overall. I did look at the stats. Coming in second place overall was someone from Fresno Unified, who, as we know, it is a 3rd biggest school district, and also 3rd place was also from Fresno. So we can factually state that Evan beat out in this invitational 2 kids from a bigger district. So when we speak about Parlier, even if we're in a small district, we're doing amazing things. Evan is proof of that. We also have instructional core practices that, as we see in the classrooms. They're evident of our focus that we have on being able to have instruction that's standards driven, kids grouped in groups so that they're able to work collaborative and hands-on. We're addressing the 4-language domain. So our focus is for all students in every class to be able to speak, read, write, and listen as well. And we are, you'll be hearing a lot about professional learning communities, otherwise known as PLCs, data-driven times in which teachers are able to plan and are able to monitor the progress of their students. So certainly a joy to be able to see all the way from our earliest kids in early childhood all the way to our seniors as well. If you can go to the next slide, please. We continue with supportive environment. We have aligned professional development for district and site leaderships. We start out the month, the first Thursday of every month with the whole extended cabinet for 2 hours, and then we continue with the principals. The following Tuesday being a meeting with our LDs, learning directors, and then the TOSAs as well. So this aligns, this brings our work from being able to see how every department works together, big picture, to being able to bring it down to the principals, all the way to the more practical aspect with the LDs, and of course, the TOSAs who impact the day in and day out coaching and advising of teachers. So we can go to the next slide, please. So we have also, as part of sport environment, we were at the high school earlier this week, and we saw going on the inventory and rationing of technology tools to our students. So there you see our tech team. I think they had several stations, maybe about 4 or 5 stations in which every single member of the tech team was checking in the inventory, being able to see and ensure that it's clean and that he has everything in the computer that needs to be uploaded for reference of the students. And the students were also able to sign a waiver ensuring that they're going to take care of that. And I know that there's going to be a parent component of that as well. So thank you to the secondary schools and also to the principals there that have allowed and facilitated for this process to happen. We also had student dances at the secondary schools, and I think this year the theme is dark and neon. So I know that a couple of weeks ago, the high school had their dance after one of their games. And then just this Friday, we were able to attend the dance that the junior high kids had as well. So it was interesting to see that age group mingle and dance and so forth. So it was fun. Going to the next slide, empower communities. So our community continues to support athletes. And of course, as mentioned earlier, elementary families participated in student recognition during the varsity football game. You're able to see some of those images. I've been continuing to attend volleyball games and then also football games. I know that we continue to pursue the W, but I know that our students are doing a whole lot better because they're scoring, and I'm able to see some improvement over last year as far as defense and offense as well. So good thing to see. Wanting also to be able to bring you in the next slide some upcoming events. We have the San Joaquin High School Back to School Night on Wednesday, tomorrow, from 6 to 7, if you care to join us. Also have my first coffee with the superintendent for the year. This is coming up on Thursday in the morning at 8. We have, as discussed with the board, board study session Tuesday, September 20th, and I believe we agreed that the time was going to be 5 o'clock to start off with. And of course, that brings us to our regular board meeting the following Tuesday, September 27th. I do want to take the time in the next slide to wish Mr. Eric Molina a very happy belated birthday. He celebrated his birthday September 1st. That was also my mom's birthday, so I always correlate those two things. So happy belated birthday. I hope you had a fun time with your family celebrating. I think it's always good to be able to celebrate life in general. So happy belated birthday to you, Mr. Molina. In the next slide, I have ways in which the community can be able to follow us. We have our Twitter handle, Facebook and Instagram as well, certainly sharing our story, the good highlights and the amazing things that continue to happen day in and day out for every student, everyone, every day. So that concludes my superintendent's report. Thank you, board, for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Guerrero, for the birthday wishes. Moving on to K, future agenda items. Trustees request a possible item to be added to future board agendas along with rationale for the request. Depending on the number of items requested, the board president may ask the trustees to arrive at a consensus and or prioritize them. Each board member will have the opportunity to make the request during this time. District administration has prepared a working calendar so that based on the district's initiatives, the board is able to come to a consensus and on the tentative date when the item may be discussed, and also give staff clarity on the elements that the board would like included. Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes. I already had requested this from Dr. Guerrero. Just want to bring it back because I haven't received anything. It's a list of consultants, the contracts that we're using and how they're doing. And the second one is, I also requested a report, a breakdown of the title funds, of all the title funds, how much we received, how much we've used, and the balance. Since the auditor's been in-house, I think that'd be an easy way to just get it from them, since it's already kind of been broken down probably. The third is the snack bar at the high school and the junior high. Last year, we worked and worked and worked to bringing it back, and we didn't get it until late April. We want to just check a status on that to see when are we going to have our snack bars at the high school and the junior high. Thank you.
Mr. Modis.
Yeah, the only thing I'm requesting is if I can get a copy of the superintendent's contract. That's the only thing. Thank you.
Ms. Tienda.
I'm not sure if it's an appropriate request for here, but it would be really nice if our students were to learn our, I forgot what it's
Band
called.
or, school
Oh,
song,
you
right?
Panthers, oh, you
Or
Panthers.
spirit,
Oh, there
spirit
we go.
song, right?
Yeah,
The school
Fight song?
spirit
the
song.
fight
yeah.
song, yes. Because when the band's playing, I'm one of the only ones yelling it out there. And so I'm not sure if everyone knows what it is. But yeah, so it's something that I think is great. And the only reason why I know it is because I was in cheer and we had to learn it because we were doing amazing in football. We were practically undefeated. We went to Valley and we were being recorded by one of our news stations and we had to sing it in front of the news camera. And so that's why we had to learn it. Other than that, I had no clue that we had a fight song. So it would be great for our students to know that, for us to place it in buildings and put it around, because we need to build our school connectedness, continue to build our culture with our students. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, one time they would, our football players would go and sing it at the end of the game with the stands.
Yeah.
That's what you would
do?
Huh?
That's what you guys.
No, they did that back before COVID with Mr. Garza, with his school principal. He brought that where they would sing it at the end of the game.
They also passed it out to the beginning of the games in little flyers so that they would practice it, but it never really got done.
Yeah.
So it would be nice.
After he left, they didn't continue it. And I got nothing. I have a motion to adjourn. Motion, Mr. Vasquez, to have a second. Second, Ms. Tienda. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passed. Meeting adjourned at 8:33.